Today we have the lovely Denise Lewis from Wake Forest University. She's their research and instruction librarian for engineering and science and has become a de facto AI guru of her campus in a lot of ways. So I will have her take it over from here.
All right, thank you so much, Devin. I appreciate it. So I do have a Creative Commons license on this presentation. Feel free to use it, abuse it, but don't get money from it. I love you. I appreciate you. But anyway, let's get started. So this morning, talk about a little bit about me. Reason why I do that is just to give those who are joining who's never attended a workshop by me, understanding of who I am and my background and experience, but also it's the time, how, going from one meeting to the other, sometimes it's a little bit. So just give people a chance to join even afterwards without even losing anything. Questions to ask yourself, just in case it's you that are doing the integrating AI tools in your course or one shot, or even really if you're working with an instructor to actually do that in their course. So did want to touch upon my own experience with using AI tools and one-shots in the classroom. I've been playing with AI tools for the past 2 years and a little bit longer, but definitively, well, yeah, it's a little bit longer than 2, but from that perspective. And then also just to give you an idea of what are the possibilities out there, different types of AI tools, as well as, research that's out there on AI tools as well, and open it up for Q&A. And if we have time, maybe we can play with some of the tools. We'll see. All depends on how it goes. All right. So in terms of me, beyond being a rabid NFL fan, yes, I am counting down to the Super Bowl. Kitchen chemist and avid bibliophile. My background in terms of education, I have a bachelor's and master in electrical engineering, as well as an associate's in culinary arts and a master's in library information science. From a work experience standpoint in corporate America, software development, testing, training, automation, and support. Did work as a chef overseas, as well as did my internship at Epcot, Lovejoy. If y'all haven't been, I definitely recommend going to the Epcot Food and Wine Festival. It was 1 month. Now I think they're up to 3 months now, but the Party of the Senses on Saturday is definitely one that I recommend. Started here at Wake in 2019 and graduated with my MLIS from IUPUI, which will now be IU Indianapolis, just 6 months after I started here at Wake. So I've worked in a variety of I finally realized I worked for the government, I worked in academia, and I worked in corporate. The only place that I haven't worked is nonprofit. Oh, love joining hair grease. It's all good. Then in terms of my research interests are the intersection of AI, data science, and information literacy, as well as looking at the digital information literacy and knowledge of incoming freshmen, and mentoring for early career BIPOC librarians. And I realized that I've taught every single 11 except for elementary. There was a brief moment I thought I wanted to be an instructor at K through 12. Yeah, no, love them, appreciate them, and pray for them every day. So questions you want to ask yourself or the instructor if you're looking at integrating an AI tool in your course. I'm looking at this presentation from a practical standpoint versus from a pedagogical standpoint. Because I think sometimes we miss those practical pieces when we're developing instruction. So first question, what is your school stance? It was really interesting to me at the ASC conference last summer, sitting at a table talking about AI tools, and one individual mentioned that their university banned ChatGPT. It's like, oh, okay. But what is your school stance? Is it no AI tools are permitted in these circumstances? Or do you have academic freedom to be able to use whatever, whenever you like? As well as look at what your department stance, because that's a little bit sometimes more nuanced. Then it would help if I went down versus up. No, I don't have my new glasses yet. I just got my eyes tested again last week. Don't talk about me. Why do you want to use AI tools in the classroom? Novelty, I would say don't do. Is it for awareness for your students for a particular industry or area? Is it to improve their critical thinking or as a study guide or aid? There are a variety of different ways that you can use AI, from inside of the classroom of a first year seminar or experience, in a STEM classroom, or even, looking over to the arts, as well as dance and theater. And it would help if I really remember to go page down versus page up. Okay, my finger's there now, I promise. So how often will students use the AI tool in a course? Are they only going to use it once, 2, 3 times, more than 3 times? That is definitely a consideration that you want to pull into it in conjunction with a couple of other questions to ask yourself and the instructor. Do you know how to use the tool? If the answer is no, why do you want your students to know how to use it if you don't? Um, Because here's the deal, how are the students gonna learn how to use the AI tool? If you don't know how to use it, who's gonna teach them? So are you gonna teach them? Is there an expert that you're gonna bring in your class in order to teach them how to use it? Are there videos or other learning aids that they can take advantage of to learn how to use the tool? Or you don't have any plan at all? And that's problematic from a lot of different standpoints. You want to know how to use the tool and actually have whatever assignment that you assign, use the tool for that assignment so that you know what those pain points may be for your students. And also already to prepare for sort of kind of like a Q&A. But I would not advise having an assignment to use an AI tool when neither you nor anyone else in your department or university are a quote unquote expert or familiar with the tool. How much time will it take for the students to come up to speed or to learn the tool? Is it one that's, has an easy to use interface, graphical user interface for what you want to use it to? Is it fairly simple? But is it going to take them less than an hour to learn how to use it, an hour to 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours, or more time to learn how to use the tool in the manner in which you want them to? If it's going to take a lot of time, let's go back to that question: how often will the students use the AI tool in the course? If it's going to take them, say, 4 hours to learn how to use the tool, they need to be using it more than once. If it's only one time that they'll be using a tool, it needs to be a tool that's fairly easy for students to come up to speed on. And that's not going to require a lot of time outside of class, because that in itself will create a burden for the students. And always you want to keep them in mind if you can. Well, actually, no, not if you can. You want to keep them in mind. But how will you grade the assignment? Is the assignment just going to be graded on completion? Ooh, you used tool. Is it going to be graded on competency? How did you use the tool, in what way? But you really want to have in mind, how are you going to be grading the students? Are you going to create a rubric for them to be able to follow? And is it really clear in terms of what competency is or means from the student's perspective? You don't want it to be unclear in any way, shape, form, or fashion how you're going to assess their performance. So just talking, for instance, from my experience, there are always things that you can learn from what you do and what you don't do. So these are the good and the bad and the do the way you do. But no. You always want to think about, when you're delivering a one shot in a course from a librarian's perspective, how much time do you have? Are you only going to be going into the course one time, or can you navigate going into the course multiple times? What tools are you teaching the students, and how is each student going to demonstrate what they're learned? So there was one class, for instance, that I covered for the other STEM instructor who was out at the time. It was a combination chemistry, biology. I forget what BMD is off the top of my head. But it was a lab where the students actually had to write an article, and they were told they were to find different resources. They needed different resources for that article. At first the instructor was like 30 minutes, and I was like, I have never like, for all the things that you want to be covered, really 45 minutes is going to be better. So I did negotiate that 45 minutes, but in that single session where I covered, how to create a search string using Boolean logic, modifiers, phrase searching, grouping, et cetera, et cetera. On top of that, I demoed these 4 tools. Primo, which is our library discovery interface, SciFinder N, which is a chemistry database that has all the references are really using the reference piece of it to search for articles and other resources is really cool. PubMed using mesh searching terms. And then, since we were trialing Site at the time, I touched base on Site.ai. To say that the students were a little overwhelmed was a huge understatement because I covered a lot of material in a short period of time. It probably would have been better for me to span that over multiple sessions, or to basically break this list down to 2 or 3. And to basically follow up with the students and tell them they can meet with me one-on-one in a personal research session. So make sure that if you are doing a one-shot, that you have sufficient time that you need to not only demo the tool, but also give the students an opportunity to play with it and ask questions while you're there. Or, set up a way that they can set up time with you within the time period before the assignment is actually due. So and these are just 2 samples of the one shots that I've actually taught AI tools in. There are a lot of other ones, but these are just samples. So that was in the spring of 22. So fall of 22, I did learn from that. So when I did a one shot for an FYS course, I basically downsized it. I had half of the class. Well, at first I was supposed to have half of the class, which is basically at 35, 40 minutes. But the first presenter went over, so I really had more like 25. In that case, rather than demoing both Elicit and Site, I provided a video for the students that they could review afterwards on Site, since by that point we had a Site license. And then for Elicit, just really demoed that in class very quickly. But Elicit is a very simple tool in terms of coming up to speed with. You don't necessarily need to play or practice. You can ask a question and Elicit return a number of resources, answering that question with a summary of the top 4. So it's really straightforward. And because of that, that's the reason why I demoed that on the spot. Site, since it would take more time, I provided resources that the students could watch, as well as gave them, let them know at any point in time they could schedule a personal research session. So it's where you want to balance, where do you want to spend your time with the students? In this case, they were freshmen, first-time freshmen at Wake. So definitely didn't want to go into Site, not knowing, what tools they had played with, or what databases they had experiences with, or what would their experience with technology in general. I usually try to look at what other classes where the students have had me before. So like with engineering, I'm embedded in engineering where I go into both the freshman classes as well as one of the sophomore classes. So since I taught the students, I know what they've covered or what they've been exposed to. And in some of those courses, I'm actually in the class multiple times. So you really want to look at, if you need to, even if you have the most well-designed one-shot presentation, and if time needed to be cut, where are you going to cut that time? And what other resources can you give students to actually learn how to use that particular tool? So from my experience, what I would share with you, first off, is to consult with the instructor and make sure that it's a dialogue versus a conversation. Because you want to come into it with your experience and actually be able to ask them questions about the overall course as well as the assignment. One of the things we typically ask for here at Wake is we'll ask for the overall course syllabi as well as a copy of the assignment. So that if the instructor is saying, I want you to cover PubMed and Web of Science, and you're looking at the assignment and it's like these are not the right databases for that. So that's where it becomes a consultation where you can be like, okay, for this assignment, I really recommend using these databases or these tools, and these are the reasons why. If the instructor, if there's a lot that the instructor wants to cover, there are times where I've gone in more or less as an as an intro for the class, and have been embedded in the class, like in a discussion forum where students can ask questions. Or I've just set aside time before the assignment was due where students could schedule like quick 15-minute Zoom meetings to discuss any questions that they may have. But definitely work with the instructor to see what'll work best for that class in terms of the student's level of experience with technology, as well as for that assignment. So definitely determine what'll work best given the AI tool that the instructor wants to use or that they're recommending, and the complexity of the assignment. So there are times where the instructor doesn't want to give, you time inside the class, but that's where you definitely want to be creative in terms of finding a balance of in-class time and out-of-class instruction. It may be that you want to offer walk-in times that you'll be available for the students. So I will raise my hand and confess. So there was one semester I actually reached out to the registrar's office and got a list of all the STEM classes and when they were taught. So I was trying to use that to plan like workshops or webinars outside of it. There was not a single day or time that there wasn't a STEM class being taught. But for a particular major, it may necessarily be easier to do that, to get that list of classes and to see what's going to be the best date and time to offer, say like a workshop or walk-ins for students. Although we do offer some workshops on Zotero on the weekends, but it just depends on you and your schedule. At all times, you want to build in time for the students to play with the tool. One of the best, I won't say best, but one of the one shots where I had all the time in the world to do everything was when I had the entire class, and the class was 3 hours long. So was able to scaffold the instruction in terms of, overview, instruction, stop, do a little play, basically a little bit more instruction, playtime, a little bit more instruction. Okay, you work on the project. I'm still here, come ask questions. So, but you want to make sure that the student touches the tool before you leave. So that they at least know how to get to it, what it looks like and how to get started. But really ask that question, go back up. Where can you meet the students' needs and what the students may need? So if you do have a class where a student has accommodations, does the tool allow, will the tool work with those students' accommodations, or will you need to find an alternate tool for that student to use? So in terms of using AI tools in a classroom, I developed and taught information literacy for engineering. It was a 1.5 credit hour course. I did it 1 day a week for the entire semester. But if you're using an AI tool in an actual course, you want to make sure that you're using the right tool at the right time. And that you give the students an opportunity to learn. And in some cases, if it's a complex tool, that you give students an opportunity to teach it. Because we always say about software and technology, that you know it when you can teach it to someone else. But also you want to make sure that you're scaffolding instruction and not throwing everything at the students all at once. So this was a course that I taught, Lib 290, Information Literacy for Engineering. In the course, okay, one of the things I always do, don't talk about me. I will look to see what students are registered for the course before the course starts. So for this particular course, 9 out of the 11 students that were registered were seniors. And it was the impetus around me finding, AI tools to use in instruction, because for Wake, once you graduate, you don't have access to all the databases here at Wake unless you're on campus, like at the library, or taking other classes outside of your degree. So there are tools that I have them use all throughout the course. And then there were tools that we only use for one assignment, and there were other tools they use for multiple assignments. But the one thing I tried to make sure is that whatever that we were covering, was that there was a free as well as a fee-based tool that they could practice with as students. So your subscription-based databases. And then there was actually in week 14 where we focused on the intersection of data science and information literacy, where there are a number of different AI tools that what they were introduced to and that they could pick for the assignment of a particular AI tool out of a category to utilize for their search. So this particular course was focused on information literacy, but we used AI tools in the course. So for your class, it's a matter of what's the content that you're covering, or what are the learning objectives that you have for the course, and how can that AI tool help to meet that learning objectives, or, in learning the content for the students. But one of the things you want to realize, when we talk about AI tools, it's not a singular category. Although ChatGPT and generative AI came out of the pocket last year strong and drove a lot of awareness with regards to AI tools. AI tools themselves have been in use for decades. But just to give you an idea of what different types of AI tools are out there, I did put together a list and to indicate whether or not the tool is free or paid. And there's some tools that you can use it for free for a certain number of credits or a certain number of times every week or every month. And then which ones, are fee-based. So for finding resources, I've always loved using Cite, Elicit, and Insightful. Elicit, I'm sorry, I won't cry. Elicit used to be free, but October of last year, it went to a paid model. So you still can use it for free. They'll start you off at 5,000 credits, and then it moves to a particular cost per month. Insightful has always been free the time that I've been using it. It's really good for if you have an esoteric topic to, given one article, find a host of other articles that are out there. LitMaps offers both a free and a paid version. For literature reviews, definitely recommend LitMaps, as well as Research Rabbit. It's been out since fall of 2021, but it's always been free. And Connected Papers, I forgot to add on there. Connected Papers, if I'm mistaken, is free and also has a fee-based version as well. Then if in terms of generative AI, Site Assistant, it's free. ChatGPT has a free and a paid version. I will say I forgot to mention that the PDF file that you receive after the webinar, these are all links that you can go to each of the tools. Google Bard is free for now. There are rumblings that Bard will have a paid version this spring, but no specific date or details as of yet. Perplexity has both a free and a fee-based model, but Perplexity, also you can use Perplexity as a browser extension as well as a search engine. Bing Chat is free, but it really and truly is best used on Edge, the Edge browser. Adobe Firefly, in terms of images and videos and other creatives where you can, mention a prompt and have it create a 2D image or video. Adobe Firefly can create from a prompt images that you can then tweak with a lot of it's like a host of tools you can tweak on the right. But anyway, you can tell how excited I am about it. But it has both a free and a paid version. Capwing is a tool that you can use to, given a prompt, generate a video. It has both a free and a paid version. The free version, I think you get an opportunity to create 3 different videos before it starts to ask for funds. HeyGen is a new tool that I just saw demoed yesterday. I have to include. You can generate an avatar video. So all you do is upload like a 2-minute snippet of yourself, a video, and give it a prompt and it'll create a video based off of that prompt using your image, your voice. It may look a little bit weird in terms of how your hands or face may move, but it also has the ability to be able to translate in other languages. and with no accent accurately. So definitely, yeah. Yeah, I'll be playing with Agent later on this week. We'll talk about that later. And then some other tools that are out there, like brainstorming, mind mapping. Chatmind is a tool that I started playing with last fall. Really good for mind mapping as well as for studying particular content. So like you can say, um, have it generate a mind map for calculus, if you're studying derivatives, and it'll basically go over from an introduction to derivatives, you know, how, how you derive trigonometric equations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. HeyPy is a really cool tool that I started using and has quickly morphed and changed. The first time I used it was, I think, in October of last year, and it touted itself as a personal assistant, you know. So since I read romance novels a lot, I asked a question, hey, you know, I'm breaking up my boyfriend. How would you recommend I do it? It asked a couple of different questions, and then came up with, you know, but, you know, just asked and, you know, brainstorming back and forth. I'm dealing with this situation. What recommendations would you make? Way cool. But there are a host of other AI tools out there in other different arenas. So like I'm doing a one shot for HES next week. Or health and exercise science classes. And there are, when I say a gazillion AI tools out there, from losing weight, food journaling, exercise, looking at how you work out, making recommendations for changes. There are a number of them out there. So in the notes section, I believe it's of this slide, I have a couple of links to different tools and a variety of different AI tools and areas out there. But uh, in terms of, is there any research out there? Yes. So it's really funny. So really quick, I use Site Assistant just to ask the question, what are different types of AI tools being used in education? And it came back with a snippet. AI tools are used a lot in terms of medical education, um, as well as in other areas, definitely in K-12, as well as in college. But even one thing I did from that, I think I listed all of the articles just from this quick prompt, in the notes section of the slide. I took one of the articles, which happened to be the application of AI technologies in STEM education. So it was a systematic review covering 2011 to 2021. Because an insightful.xyz, you can take an article and find more articles. So the cool thing there was that it found all of these other. So there's a systematic review of AI-driven educational assessment in STEM education, AI role in education system based on proposed conceptual framework, artificial intelligence and online education, systematic review of empirical research from 2011 to 2020, learning analytics and programming courses, review and applications, and so forth. So even if you were to do a quick Google for your particular area, there are even websites out there where teachers have more or less explained, this is the AI tool that I use in my classroom, this is how I use it, this is how I assess it, et cetera, et cetera. But for practice of this presentation, I tried to keep it overall general versus slides, because yeah, Lovejoy. But other things that you definitely want to think about and always take in consideration. Whether or not you use an AI tool in your course, you definitely want to include in the statement and in your syllabus in terms of how AI should or should not be used. For us here at Wake Forest, I think the number of submissions to honor violations increased a little bit. So so that's something that all instructors are requested to do, is to have an AI statement. But you can say AI tools are not allowed, AI tools are permitted under what circumstances or assignments with attribution, or AI tools are only permitted for a specific assignment in a specific way, and that the student has to explain their usage and give attribution when necessary. But also realize that citation styles vary in terms of how you cite generative AI and other tools. So whatever citation style that you have for your course, just make sure there's a way that students can utilize it to give the correct attribution. And also don't make sure that whatever tool that you use, that it's free and free for the number of times that the student will be using in the course. Because you don't want to cause, a financial burden for students, require them using a tool that's only fee-based. Or in that case, make sure that you have an alternative for the students to use that is free for unlimited usages. And then also always look at the tool. If you do have a student that has accommodations, that the tool is accessible from that framework. And there are different ways that you can test a tool's accessibility. I forgot to include that in the slides, so I may include that and send Devin an updated presentation. So also make sure that you scaffold the instruction. The worst thing in the world is to throw everything at someone all at the same time. So this is just a recommendation that, I have, especially if you're doing a one-shot, or even if you're not doing a one-shot, or if you're teaching an AI tool in your course, you want to give the students a general introduction with a low-stakes assignment. But make sure that you have an opportunity for everyone to get familiar with the tool individually. The worst thing in the world is to introduce a tool and be like, do it in your group, because everybody's gonna look at that one student in their group to do it and no one else is gonna touch it. So if your expectation is for every student to know how to use the tool, make sure you are introducing in a way that they have an opportunity to play with it as an individual, and that you are assessing, do you know how to use it as an individual? But definitely make sure that you give an opportunity for the students to play with the tool, ask questions, and get help with needed. And there's a variety of ways you can do that inside the class as well as outside the class. And if the tool is one that's going to take a while for the students to build competency in terms of learning it or the interface, make sure that you have a separate session to discuss advanced options or techniques with, again, time for the students to play and ask questions. At that point, you can allow them to work in small groups, because that's the point where sometimes students are going to use the tool in a way that you never would expect it. You wouldn't have planned for it, like, what? But they can bounce off ideas off of one another, and then even share with the entire class, so that knowledge isn't necessarily limited to those students that were in that small group. And at this point, you can have the assignment to be individual or group, just all depending, again, back on what was your learning objective, and if the individuals are supposed to build a certain level of competency, make sure that you're assessing at that level of competency that you expect on an individual basis. But you can have an open lab or one-on-one sessions or instructions, because remember, everyone does not learn technology at the same time or in the same way. One of the funniest but most painful moments was, I'll never forget sitting in on a workshop at another college that I worked at to learn Angel and LMS. And there was one instructor who was like, how did you get there? Where did you go? What did you do? And in talking with academic technology, it was like, okay, look, before you have this class, there needs to be, a computer 101 class for instructors to learn, keyboarding, how to use a mouse, how to save a file. But there's some pre-knowledge skills that, people need to have before this. So that's another level of assessment that you may want to do is, is there any prior knowledge or skills that students need to have before they use this particular AI tool? So yeah, I left time for Q&A. So now, what questions do you have? Oh, I saw a comment. Using Chatmind in undergraduate biology course about pregnancy. Yeah, cool. Oh, you're totally welcome, Lori.
We have a question from Catherine asking, how do you decide when to showcase paid tools like Scite AI? Sorry if you already addressed that.
Oh, so I like to do just-in-time training. So say as students are working on a research project and it's due on March 5th. it doesn't make sense for me to do a one shot in January, knowing that most students probably aren't going to start on the assignment until mid-February. So I would say to definitely do the instructions at least at the minimum 2 weeks before it's due. Or at that time that students would, that students would probably start working on the assignment in order to complete it. So, and there are certain places like in an engineering class that the students have a week to do the assignment from their last project. So literally I'm coming in like maybe a week and a half prior. Because it's over Thanksgiving break. So I'll do the one shot before Thanksgiving. So if they started over Thanksgiving on their own, they have the opportunity to do so with the knowledge and skills. But yeah, just in time training. You don't want to introduce it too early and you don't want to introduce it too late. If it's a complex tool that they'll need to build up their skill set, I would say to introduce it, look at that deadline and do backwards design to think about what should be included in an intro, what should be included in phase 2, and if you need additional phases when you're going to do that. Because sometimes it could be a quick 10-minute overview, give them 10 minutes to play. Come back the next week or in 2 weeks. Okay, you've had opportunity to play with it outside of class. Any questions? All right, we're gonna go on to level 2. But yeah. So I
We
see that.
have a question from Lori coming in.
Mhm.
Yep.
That defines citations for a lit review. Do you favor AI tools over databases? In other words, why would a student go to a database like Web of Science if they can get citations from an AI tool? So it all depends. It depends on the area, like, is it engineering, physics, social science, et cetera, et cetera. The currency in terms of, is the instructor or do students need to find references only within the last 3 to 5 years? And then also, is it a specialized area? If it's a specialized area, there's some AI tools that are used, but not all. Like Scite, in certain niche scientific areas, doesn't necessarily have the coverage. So I may use Insightful or Lit Maps or Connected Papers. But in certain cases, I'll go back to tried and true Web of Science, SciFinder, PubMed. So if it's a new topic like recent Web of Science is probably not going to cover it. I may go to an AI tool for that. Because there are times where I've used Insightful. Insightful has a variety of different ways you can use it. Like in another instance, you can add additional papers to the map in Insightful, and it'll generate additional articles. So if it's really a topic that is like, okay, well, yeah, and there are times where I go back to the library discovery interface, or may even search like rather than using an AI tool, I may go to table of contents to see, what is there, are there any new journals for that particular area? And then see where can I search those journals for content. So it depends. It really depends. But if it's a class where a student only needs X number of articles, I mean, database or AI tool, it's a flip. It depends on what the instructor like. And in some cases, I show both so that they have exposure into what, because unfortunately, there isn't a single database that includes every single article, every single ebook, every single standard, every single patent. If there was, life would be wonderful. But since it doesn't, in order to really get coverage, you're going to need to search more than 1 or 2 tools to find depth as well as breadth. Yes, I'll have a few more questions. Oh, how reliable are the citations from Brew? Okay, so here's my deal. I only use AI tools when I'm searching for resources that will take you back to the source. So I don't use the free version of ChatGPT to find sources. I'll use perplexity.ai or Google Bard varies. There's sometimes I'll play with Bard and it'll show this is where I got the information from. And there's another time where it would just be like, oh, just do a fact check. But perplexity.ai will always show you what sources it pulled the information from. And also you can tweak it to change the focus from web crawling to searching academic resources. I'll use Cite as well because again, it takes me back to the original sources, the articles, et cetera, that it got the information from. So from a librarian perspective, always you want to use an AI tool that's going to show you, this is where I got the information from. You can trace it back to the source. So yeah, on that one. See, there's a question from Derek. Does Wake have a policy on student AI use for scholarly work or faculty responsible for this individually? Wake as a whole doesn't have a policy for students. Academic freedom. No. The only thing that that's a request is that instructors have an AI policy in their syllabi. So every instructor can decide what they want to use or what they don't want to use, or what they allow or what they don't allow. So from Sarah, one thing I struggle with in these tools is the quality of the top results. How do you build in critical evaluation of the results to non-expert students in your teaching? So so this is where I have the caveat, and I didn't have it in my presentation. So if it's a beginning writing class, I wouldn't introduce those students to using an AI tool to write. Or in some case, even to edit. Because the focus is for the student themselves to build their skill set in terms of writing, be it the foundation of writing a standard 5-paragraph essay, or creative writing in terms of how do you come up with the idea, how do you express yourself. So that's where it depends on where is the student at. In terms of critical thinking and assessment, again, goes back to what's the learning objective, what's the assignment. But you do want students to realize that AI tools work in certain, it goes back to using the right tool for the right purpose. So I usually have an overview of what tool are you using it? Why do you want to use it? This is what you don't want to use it for. So go over the pluses and the minuses, the advantages and the disadvantages. The ethical considerations in terms of when you sign up for a tool, make sure you use an email address versus signing in using Google, Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. So I try whenever I teach to not only teach the tool, but to give a general overview just in terms of policy, ethics, do's and don'ts. And I see that there's another, okay, and I forget where. So yeah, quality, and some of that goes back to the specific tool and where it's getting its information from in terms of the corpus, what it's built from. So yeah, just making sure that if it's a health and exercise class, that I'm not recommending a tool that should only be used for social science. Okay. So I'm seeing more and more retracted labels in databases. With AI tools, are you seeing those labels on citations as well? From Lori. Okay, so again, depends on the tool. So with Cite, as well as Elicit, they will list any retracted articles or articles that have any errata associated with it. So make sure that whatever tool that you're using, that it does. So in that case, I have a couple of articles that I'll use as like a test. So no matter what you do, I would definitely recommend playing with a variety of different tools. So at different points in times, I've asked, like for generative AI, I'll look at the results side by side from ChatGPT, Perplexity, Cite, ChatSonic, Google Bard, as well as Bing Chat. And then, just test it. And there's some that, if I find a new tool, I'll email it to a couple of different instructors to say, hey, can you test this in your research area and look at, okay, how accurate is it? So that's where you have to either work in conjunction with the instructor, to look at, really, is this particular tool that you want to use, is it relevant for, the particular area or topic, under discussion that you're looking at? Um, do. Oh, you're welcome, Jenny. So do Cite or other tools grant access to full text, or do you then need to go through a database for full text access? So, no. Cite is actually built to do its analysis off of the full text, but it won't give you necessarily access to the full text of the article. If it's, a subscription-based article, it'll link you to that article to see if then you yourself have access to it through your university, but it doesn't give access to the full text of the article. There aren't any AI tools that I know at that way. But there are tools that will see if they can find, the full text of the article in a repository, like, basically web crawl. So they're not showing you possibly the published article, but they may be showing you, a past preprint or the article if it's been uploaded in the school's repository. Um, Unless you're using, we don't want to use anything like, oh my God, what's the one tool that has been banned every single time they find it? Is Sci something, SCI. This is before. Okay, that's gonna bug me, so I'm gonna have to search for it. Sci space. Uh, 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 uh. Okay.
Travis is sharing Sci-Hub in the chat. Is that
Thank
it?
you, Sci-Hub. Thank you. I was like, what is it? Yeah, Sci-Hub. We don't access Sci-Hub. We don't, yeah. Yeah, we stay away from tools that like Sci-Hub from a copyright perspective. Um, so, okay, so Sarah mentioned, just to clarify, I'm thinking of, say, a junior non-major who's using Elicit to build a bibliography for a research paper. They don't know if the top results are appropriate or not. They may just run with them. But usually for a research paper, you're going to use more than the 3 or 4 or 8 results that Elicit gives you. So usually I just use Elicit as a start, not as a finishing point. And I'm thinking that most students should, yeah, because they need more papers than what Elicit will provide at first, unless they select more papers. Yeah, but I'm thinking, yeah. But that's where you have to definitely make sure that right tool, right purpose. So if I'm doing a research paper, Elicit, again, place to start, not a place to finish. That's where for a literature review, it's more Research Rabbit. I forget which ones I had on that slide, lit maps and connected papers. So archiving, organizing, and research informations, tools like Zotero. So different tools are compatible with different citation managers. Because Zotero is open source, I'm finding that more tools will have a link to export or import information from Zotero than like Mendeley and other citation managers. So again, it's just a matter of finding that tool, whichever citation manager that you want to use that'll allow you to import or export. But since we use Zotero here at Wake, I'm like, no, a lot of them do integrate with Zotero, so I'm not gonna lie to you on that one. Okay. All right, comments, but did I miss any questions, Devin? Because my eyes and I are disagreeing until I get my new glasses. Oh, no, don't.
It doesn't look like it. I think you covered everything.
Cool. Yeah, I saw what Sarah said. I think my issue is that I've tinkered with tools that purport to build bibliographies, and I haven't found a single one that generates the best, latest, or best foundational sources for me in the fields I support. Scholarly databases get students much closer 100% of the time. So I would suggest playing with like Research Rabbit, Lit Maps, and Connected Papers. Lit Maps has definitely improved from when I first started using it a couple of years ago. Their relevancy has improved. Connected Papers, I haven't played with for a while, but even when I did, it was really good. And Research Rabbit is one that my sister just graduated with her, what is it? Brain fart. Anyway, she was writing a thesis paper, so not PhD, DD, EDD? Yeah, EDD. Ha-ha! So I showed her Research Rabbit, was it last year or the year before? It was spring of 2022. And she was so angry. She's like, why didn't you show this to me for? I was like, dude, it just came out of beta last fall, this past semester. So Research Rabbit is definitely one that I recommend and I've used that one to do research across STEM as well as outside of STEM, humanities, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, right tool, right purpose. Any other questions? Cool. Well, actually, we got 8 minutes. So just to show you, hold on. I'm since we have time. Uh, uh, uh. So like Research Rabbit gives you the ability to create like a small number of collections or a collection of papers, and then from those papers find other papers or similar works. So these are a lot of collections that I've had on the slides. So from, what is dielectrophoresis, stormwater, but physicians and writing, diversity recruitment techniques, framework for developing school principals, um, dieties of outsourcing at colleges, digital information, literacy of incoming freshman students, vaccines for the elderly, partnership between libraries and student services. So you can see that there's a variety of different topics that you can pull from. But the neat thing is, a lot of times what I'll do is pull papers from Elicit and use those papers for Elicit as a collection in Research Rabbit. And then just click on similar work to find additional references or resources. And you can change it from looking at the network of papers. The papers in blue are the papers papers in green, rather, the ones that you have in the collection. And blue are the ones that are being recommended. You can also change it from a network to a timeline. And then from listing the first author, the last author, but also look at earlier work and later work. So it's a really good way of pulling together articles for a particular research area. You just have to either to add papers, do a Boolean search, or keywords, or just add papers from another search that you've done in another area. But so yeah, so the tool search, definitely both humanities as well as STEM. Because with Wake Forest is a liberal arts college, and like for our engineering program where I'm most embedded in, or actually I'm embedded in the engineering department, everything is looked at from the lens of liberal arts. So like students have one assignments in EGR 111 where they have to find a pre-modern engineer, someone who was born before 1400s, and look at how they meet their definition of an engineer, then pick a character virtue and show how they meet that character virtue, look at the impact in terms of their particular time, as well as what they've contributed to engineering as a whole. So because of that, most of the tools I usually use can be researched for STEM as well as for topics outside of STEM. It's when you get to the niche areas, like the real specific slices, for your master's thesis and PhD students, that you have to play with the tool to find what's going to be the best tool for their specific research area. Um, uh, uh. Yeah, if you have a monograph heavy discipline in the humanities, then definitely would suggest, I would literally for that, I would go for Google Books. I kid you not. But that's not an area that I've found or needed to find an AI tool for. So in that case, you mean literally you can do a quick Google search, like AI tool monographs. And I bet you bottom dollar, there's a tool out there that'll do that for you. But with 3 minutes left, I'm gonna call. Any other questions? I feel like a bartender. Last call. But with that, I will definitely feel free at any point in time to reach out to me. So I do have my contact information in the presentation, as well as a direct link to ZSR and LinkedIn. And I know I haven't updated, well, I have updated my ZSR page with previous workshops or webinars that I've done, and some of those have links to the actual recording. But definitely feel free to reach out via email or via LinkedIn.
All right, folks, we will wrap things up for this morning, but thank you all so much for coming to this third and final webinar in this three-part series that Denise has led. The first two webinars are available on our YouTube channel, and then the third one, this one today, will be up this afternoon. But please feel free to reach out to Denise, add her on LinkedIn. She's a great LinkedIn follow. And have a great rest of your Thursday. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Thanks so much, Denise.
You're totally welcome.
All right, everybody, take care.
Bye.